What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Unicorn Perspective. Today, sitting down with a guy who I feel like this year there's been quite a few people that I've known about or heard of, but haven't gotten to meet and really talk with. But like started talking with a few people and have just hit it off. You guys know I've sat in with Rich Sheffrin a bunch of times. He's become a really good friend of mine in a very short period of time. And my guest today, Los, you are a guy that I know your business partner really well. I know Josh really well. But we've just kind of connected and we both kind of live locally, and I'm excited to continue to build a relationship over the rest of this year and then in 2021. But this is the first, we've texted a lot. We've hopped on the phone a few times. This is the first time we're sitting down face to face. You gave me the green light that you're an open book today, conversation wise, which I said, it's a risky maneuver. So we'll see where the conversation goes. But I'm excited to sit down with you, man. There's so much I want to ask you. It's so much cool stuff you're doing. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Same thing. Like, just super stoked that we're local. We're gonna be getting to hang out a lot more, and same thing with you. Just always kind of like knew who you were, but we had never really gotten connected to it until Josh kind of set us up. So stoked to jam today.
Definitely. So let's start here. And this is, again, some of these questions I'm going to ask are for, actually a lot of the questions that I ask on the show are always somewhat selfish because they're what I'm interested in, what I want to know about. So the first thing is more just like the dynamic with you and Josh in terms of like, what's that relationship look like? What are you guys kind of really working on right now? Let's start there.
Yeah, so Josh and I met like 2 years ago at Ed O'Keefe's event. We both spoke, kind of jammed, and then we both kind of stayed in touch, joined another mastermind together, and then that's when we kind of like started getting close. And one thing led to another. We decided to kind of partner on a bunch of stuff outside of Snow. And so we have is a company called PowerHouse Ventures, which really it's three things. It's a mastermind for e-com entrepreneurs that want to build and sell brands, and I can talk about that in a little. And then it's kind of like a venture. So like between Josh and I, we get a ton of people that want to give us equity or to work in some percentage capacity. And so we decided, all right, let's do it. So we have an internal team here in Orlando that we don't necessarily take on clients. We'll take on like one or two, but it's really gotten to the point like if it's not our own company, there's kind of just no reason to build that. And I come, I've had an agency always the majority of my life, even though I've done other things. The agency has always been a backbone, but I've always looked at it as like a Gary Vee model of like, this can pay. And then when we have all of our own brands, like we really don't need to take on clients because, as you know, if you win for them, you're losing. And if you lose for them, you're the worst piece of trash in the world, right? So there's no happy medium inside of that. And so Josh and I get equity in some brands, and he helps on the strategic, kind of like really big picture side, and I'm more kind of like the operator. And we both know a lot about marketing, so we get the gem on that. And it's been going really, really well. And obviously Josh and I've got super close. So the dynamic is really good because I come from knowing a lot about working with influencers. I used to work with influencers, build them brands and sell it, scale it, or give it back to them in some sort of capacity. And to a degree, Josh is an influencer, right? Like he doesn't have time to do a lot of things that other entrepreneurs can do. So I've been able to manage that relationship pretty well with that.
It's interesting. I feel like I keep meeting more and more people who follow the same path. And I find it interesting when I see just like observing trends, right? And I'm sure you do this all the time, and you look and you see a lot of people that you meet that are very successful that have all kind of figured out the same thing, and they figured it out independently, which I think is interesting. And that one thing that I keep seeing happening is, at least in our space, like the marketing space, people kind of they start, agency world, small agency, and they grow into like a larger agency, and they kind of figure out, like, this kind of sucks. Like, I'm exhausted working with clients sucks. I keep building these people's companies, and they're like, selling them, and they're doing huge affiliate deals, and they're doing 1,000 sales a day. And I'm making, 20, 50,000 a month, whatever it is from them. And they're, selling it for 10, 20, 50, 100 million. And then I realized, well, let me start my own thing over here. And it's interesting to me, like observationally, to keep seeing that play out. So I guess the curiosity part of me is like, why do you think that continues to play out? And for like you, like what got you to that point where you decided, hey, we're doing this agency thing. It's cool. It generates cash, which is important, especially when you're getting started. But you have this epiphany and realization, like maybe we should stop doing it for other people and start doing it for ourselves. And if we're going to do it for other people, we only do it for a select few, and we make sure we have significant upside at a similar level to owners or investors in a business from an equity position.
So I'll give you a little context on my reasoning, right? So 3 years ago now, we had our own brand, and it was with influencers, and we were doing 8 figures, and I had other partners where we were going as a partnership just didn't align. I wanted to get into more brands, bigger people, sell stuff. They were kind of trying to hit more the ClickBank route. They're very different, right?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, we ended up doing essentially like an acqui-hire. I bought them out, not just for the brands, but for the people here. And so the brands that we had kind of ended up fizzling out, and I had to kind of start from scratch. And what made sense was to do an agency, because I was kind of like, I don't know what to do right now. I don't have an offer idea. Like, it takes a lot to do all that.
Yeah.
I was like, let's just take people on. And we did that for about 2 more years. And it got to the point where the agency was scaling. And I was like, all right, well, if we take the agency to 8 figures, it's really a human resource company, right? And like, man, what's that look for me? Like, how many more people? What are we going to do here? The money would have been fine, sure, but like, I don't get to see my kids anymore. I don't get to hang out with my wife. Like, I'm speaking just to get clients in. Now it's all this. If there's trouble, everyone has my cell phone number and they're calling. I mean, we were having, success with a lot of people, and some people would be like, hey, I'm getting a 3 times ROAS. What the hell? Like, it's not working for me anymore. I'm not netting as much. I was like, you don't even know how to run a business. Like, this is so annoying. And so we slowly started to say, like, all right, let's start building our own brands, right? And we started doing that, and still kept the agency to manage that. And we have a few brands that we started to grow, run, and scale. And some clients, I was like, listen, this only works if we are partners in it, at the same time building our other stuff. And then, when Josh kind of came in on the other side, I was like, all right, now we can fully focus on these things. Because I've always had this like annoying thing about me too, because I always questioned, I was like, if you're so good, why do you have an agency, right? But I had an agency, but I knew the reasoning, right? And I think that it's the same thing with people, right? Not the acquisition hire and all that, but like, you kind of have a fear, you're kind of good, and you're getting clients, then you're scaling that up, and then you realize, like, man, this isn't a lifestyle business anymore. I can take it to here, but it takes this much, it takes these many people, and it's really like, you're never going to be valued on a sales level. Like, the big valuation is not going to come from having an agency. You're not going to sell that. You're going to sell it for 1.5, maybe 2 times, like, EBITDA, right? So like, that's not exciting. So I got to keep this forever. And now it's hiring, managing, team, leadership, culture, and you're going to cap out. When you can build a brand, you can do something on e-commerce, even on the coaching consulting side of stuff, you build a program, and there's a lot of scale and leverage inside of that, less overhead. Well, not with e-commerce, less overhead, less acquisitions on the other side. I think people start to look at it and go, man, I can do this, right? And so they start to use that as like a stepping stone to move into the next phase.
Yeah, I think the difference is you're investing, when you're investing in personnel and inventory, any of these costs that, either variable or fixed, that unlike an agency or unlike an info or certain types of businesses, which are very profitable and generate a lot of cash, the return at the end of the day is not as great because you're not going to realize like that huge multiple like you talked about, right? So it's, if I'm investing in infrastructure, I'm investing in different assets to build a brand, 2, 3, 4, 5 years on the road, maybe I sell that for 20, 50, $100 million, right? There's growth there. That's the thing. I think people, it's challenging to get to that point where you start out and your goals, I want to make money, and maybe it's like I got to leave 9 to 5, maybe I'm out of college, and moving from that to thinking, well, what's the goal, right? What's the big picture goal? Once you get kind of beyond that point of like, okay, it's no longer a day-to-day grind or a week-to-week or month-to-month. It's like, okay, now we have the ability to think bigger picture. What is bigger picture? And that's what's interesting. I think that seems to be the period where people figure it out. Like, this really isn't something that I can realize a lot of value in terms of the exit potential there. So they start looking, well, where can I exit? Where can I get a significant multiple? And it's amazing what's happening right now. I mean, it's the demand for e-commerce businesses is sky high. There's so many people trying to get into the space from outside. There's a lot of private money. There's private equity coming in, and the multiples are high. There's a lot of stuff you can do in terms of roll ups where you're buying, $1 to $5 million your businesses, putting them together into a new entity that now you have 4 or 5 of those. Now it's a 10, 15, $20 million business, and the multiple is 2 to 3 times higher than the multiple you bought it for. There's just so much cool stuff that you can do financially there. Besides the fact of just like there's the financial aspect of it, and there's also the like, are you having fun doing what you're doing? And
Right.
I haven't met many people that like are thrilled with the service-based businesses, like agency-based businesses and stuff, especially if you're the face of it. Like you kind of were talking about the clients are always calling you. That's what we struggled with was, hey, at some point you need to have other people run accounts. It needs to be beyond you, but everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to work with you. So it's you. A lot of people say, well, hey, you can build an agency and remove yourself from it totally. And that is true for certain types of agencies if you build them in a certain way. But I think for a lot of people in our space, it ends up happening, like the way it gets built is a kind of a face, like an influencer starts it, somebody that built a following. And the problem with that is like everyone wants that person. They came to work with you because of you. So it's really difficult to remove yourself completely from the equation without losing clients or not being able to charge the premium that you're charging. And that's what we got to, which is like, it was a combination of that being able to remove myself from the business, from the day to day, and then also just the frustration of, you're constantly churning clients. You can make them as successful as possible, but they're always eventually going to leave you. There's a number, right? Like Perry Belcher told us, because we used to run all the ads for Rival Media, which is their company that owns like Survival Life and a lot of their content sites and stuff. And he said, at some point we're going to be writing you a check that even if you're absolutely crushing it for us, our accounting team is going to like think about it. Like they're going to say, hey, you just wrote these guys a check for $100,000 this month. What can we do with $100,000? And it's everyone hits that point. And so that's where it gets tricky. It's like the more successful you are with the way the financial models are and the compensation models are for agencies, the more difficult it becomes to kind of justify the value. It's really frustrating. It's really challenging. It's like the better you do, the harder it becomes to actually keep the person.
Dude, it's crazy because you lose value as a person, right? People start to get mad at you for
Yep.
the success. Like they stop looking at what you generated for them gross, and they look at the check they're sending you, and they're like, "Why am I writing you a $70,000 check? Like,
Yep.
what are you even doing? It's just marketing." Now it's just marketing. When you were doing 20K and now you're doing $1 million a month, that was like, you guys are changing my life. But now that you're getting a percentage of this, and they're getting $75,000 they got to send to you. Now they're like, I mean, we can do this. Like, we already know it. And like, you know what? Sure, you can to a degree, but we built the marketing, the ads, the videos, we chopped everything, the email sequences. Like, we go deep on this stuff, and they start to lose respect for you in that regard. And the other thing that I realized, and this is a big epiphany moment for me, I have a friend, Scott Olford, and very, very good friend of mine. Scott charges 100K, and I was at his house. I went to see him like a month ago. We spent a few days at his house. And I was like, how do you do it? And he's like, well, you couldn't do it. And I was like, why? He's like, you have an agency. Like, you're capped. Like, why would I pay you for work or thoughts and processes when I can pay your agency to do it all for a significantly lesser clip? And I was like, you're right. Like, I can't charge you 20,000. And I used to be able to charge those prices, but now with a big agency, like, you can't just be like, yeah, it's 20 grand for me to just talk to you. Like, well, what else? You have an agency. What else are you going to do for me? What's going to be this and that and the other? And I was like, man, I just put myself in a box, And for people like us, like we can add a ton of value with an existing. You can say one or two things that can double their revenue that month, and now you have to show it by like working on it. And then the bad side about it is too, like, a lot of people that you could be working with and helping, they could be growing and they don't know what anything means, right? So when you're getting a 5 times return at $1,000 a day and you're getting a 2 times return at $20,000 a day, they're just like, why aren't we doing better? And like, well, you don't have any more SKUs, you don't have this, we can't increase the average order value. And that's all blind to them. They're like, but we were doing this and we're doing this now. What's wrong with you? And you're frustrated. You're sitting down being like, are you kidding me, dude? Like what? But there's no answer you have is the right answer. You are the wrong answer only, right? And that's where I was like, man, like I need to go. I know who I am. I know the value my team can bring, but we need to do it for ourselves. So like if we do something bad, it's all good. It's data. It's understanding. Like I don't have a problem launching something and failing. I don't have a problem losing money because I have a big picture approach, and I know there's more to marketing than just running a couple of ads, right? And we come in with that approach to companies, but at one point, like it's kind of like it kind of kicks us back in the ass, and we're the best part of it, and then we're the worst part of it. And it's a revolving door, right? Like max, you have a year, but really you're talking about 6 months, depending on the deal and stuff like that. That you're going to be keeping someone. That's what a really good agency. I know plenty of people have a 3 month revolving door.
Oh yeah, all the time. I had a group of guys that were in a subscription business, and was there in our program, and they were talking. We said, hey, we just we're thinking about hiring this agency, and they did, and then like 5 weeks later, they're like, things aren't going well. I think we have a 3 month contract, but we're gonna just terminate it, and they did, and that's people forget. Like if you start an agency, like doesn't matter if you have a 3 month, 6 month agreement, like you're not gonna fight it, right? If somebody wants to leave, they're gonna leave. You're not gonna go to court over an extra 10, 15, 20, like it's absurd. So people are they just leave at will. And it's this, like you said, revolving door. I do think it's interesting that like people are quicker to blame and quicker to they pay less and they value less the doers versus like the thinkers. Like you just said, it's easier to blame. Hey, you're going to do all this for us. Well, we only want to pay you this. You want to come in and give us you want to talk for a day and like give us ideas for, be on call for, once a week. Like we'll pay you $100,000 a month or 50, whatever it is. Like it is interesting. I think it depends on where the business is at. And that's where it gets tricky. I'm curious how you guys do this with the businesses that you consult with and come in at an advisor level. Because there is a point, and I don't know what I'm curious if you have numbers or just high level thoughts. Like, what is that point for a business where they get to like the realization that, hey, what I need now is not just doers and like people that just do things for me. I need people that like can come in with high level advice, connections, resources, and like tell me what I should be doing instead of just me telling other people what I think should be done and paying them for services.
Yeah, so mostly we on the venture side, we work with companies that are doing over a million a year. Usually they're doing like 2 million or so. They've got ads down to a degree, little SKUs. They don't know anything else. No Amazon traffic, no Pinterest, no YouTube, no Google, not even branded terms. Just kind of like they've got Facebook down, right? They got 2 to 3 SKUs. It's going well. Very poor email marketing, no SMS, no flows. And we have like basically for us to be advisors, it's 10%. And we will say words that stand on the board. And for us to bring the team in, it's 30, sometimes more. And then you still have to pay a small fee just because of, so it's like not commingling. Like you just pay us a little bit of the service fee. It's basically baseline, like super cheap. But we get 30% with depending on the company, a monthly distribution. But we also do, we advise, we help, we make connections, we'll do the influence. Have all the contracts. We can connect you to QVC, Walmart, Target. And right now, like what we've learned is we pretty much only take 2, max 3 people a year. So we can really focus on these things. It's not about taking it like everyone thinks. It's not like, you remember when you were younger and you probably made a lot of mistakes and none of these companies exist anymore, but you're like, oh, I've got equity in these 15 things. And like, none of that worked, right? So we're like, we'll do 2 a year and we'll watch them scale and grow, put our time, effort, and emphasis in these things. And the other thing that we realize is we need to, like, we have this barbecue analogy. We won't partner with anybody we don't want at a barbecue. And the best way to do that is through really only working with companies that have come through the mastermind, because then we know their secrets, we know their team, we know the founders, we know all that. Because anybody can come in with a good idea that graduated from Harvard or left Stanford or whatever, and we have that, but like, I don't know your personality. Being a partner or having even any small position in a company, really, it's about relationships and it's about how are we going to get along? Are you going to listen to me? Are you going to be demanding? Like, what's all of that? And so we realize that being able to have people on the group and being friends first makes so much more sense to then engage in a
Yeah.
relationship with it.
So how do you convince people? Because I remember when I was still in school and I started my first company and we raised money, like, and being on the other side of the equation where you're raising capital and looking for investors, you have this belief that your every share is so valuable, right? Like I want to hold my equity. My equity is so precious and so valuable, and right, most companies they're never going to sell or exit, so the equity is pretty much worthless, other than waiting out the distributions. But most startups in Silicon Valley don't make money, so they don't do distributions, right? So I'm curious, though, with I'd imagine that companies that even fit that frame that are doing, low seven figures a year, they still probably have somewhat of a scarce mindset. And they're still somewhat, I'd imagine, loss averse. Again, that's a generalization. It's not true with everybody. It could be their third, fourth company, which is different. Like how are you positioning you coming in and taking that chunk of equity from them? Because that's what essentially it's, hey, you're gonna take our equity, we're gonna own less of this business. Now we understand that it's the whole like grape versus the watermelon analogy and stuff, and that's been used and played out all the time. But people still instinctually like, I don't want to give you something that I have that I value more than you probably value.
So to be super frank with it, like we are we get a lot of deal flow. So like if someone we don't even try to convince you. We're like, listen, between both of us, we've spent over 100 million in ads. We've sent a billion emails. Like we've done the thing. We both exited
Yeah.
companies. We both bought companies. Like we have nothing to prove to you. We have our own companies already that we're growing. So if you don't want to be a part of this, we're not going to do it. But this is something that you're getting our team that's done all these things. You're getting all of our relationships. If you went out and distributed advisory shares on a real company, you're going to have a board of like 5, 6 people with a few points, and then you're going to have your media buying team, and then you're going to have this and that. Like we're worth every penny on that regard, right? Like really, that's where it's going. And to go back to the equity and distribution, really we focus on distributions because it's just like you said, right? Um, if you sell a company. Everyone thinks equity is like, oh, he has equity, but like equity is the most fakest lie in the world unless you sell a company.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone talks about the equity thing like it's a big thing, but frankly, what you need to be worried about is profit shares and distribution. And then if it sells, cool. But if it doesn't sell, okay. And also, even in that regard, right? Like we know the buyers, we know funds. Like I'm an advisor to a fund here, and so they buy and sell companies. Josh is as well to another one. So like we have the relationship. So with all those things connected, that's where we kind of add our value and say, this is what we can do for you, and it's kind of take it or leave it.
I like that. I struggle with this sometimes when people in our courses and in groups and stuff ask, how do you sell people, whether it was the agency or whether it was consulting, whatever it might be, and it's hard because we never have had a strategy, right? Like similar to what you guys have, which is you know people come to us, and
Right.
so it's this weird thing where the more you push away and the more you say like we don't need your business, like we want you to actually more sell us and we want to sell you. Like if you want to work with us, great. If you don't, no hard feelings. It is magnetic and people want to work with those companies. They don't want to work with the companies that are on LinkedIn spamming them all day long that seem like, well, they need my business. Like they're willing to get they're negotiating against themselves. Like, oh, actually, we'll do 5K a month. We'll waive this. We'll waive that. And it's a challenging thing because you can't necessarily teach that, right? It's not something you can just snap your fingers and say, hey, this is a model. Like, go do this tomorrow, and you'll start getting high premium clients. It's a multi-year strategy of building up clout and influence and relationships and equity and kind of banking that and then reaping the rewards down the road. Because we have people coming to us that said, hey, I saw you speak at Ezra's event 5 years ago, and I've been following you for 5 years, and now I'm a CMO at this company, and we want to work with you now. Like, it's really hard to necessarily teach that and get people to appreciate it because it's such a long game.
So I think if you're doing an agency, right, for people that want to do an agency, I would start at the like, hey, I'll do anything for you for 5K because I got nothing. But for people like us, like you said, right, like we've spoken at every event, every mastermind. We're a member of all of them because they asked us to come through. But it's been 5, 7, 10 years of that, right? Like now, people just come to you, you get referrals, you have relationship, you're vetted, like you've done things, like it's so impossible for you to replicate what we've done. Like most of your relationships are probably 90% organic if you have a deal or if you still take people
Yeah.
on. And you're probably at two where you're like, I don't even know if it's worth it. Sorry, guys. You know what I mean? Because we also escalate as individuals and as company owners and all that, which does make it more enticing for people to want to engage with us, right? Because like there is no joke here. It's like, oh, if you don't want to do this, I have a list of people I haven't even gotten on the phone with, and they're more than happy to get on a call with me. Like when for the mastermind as an example, sometimes we'll get calls because we do run ads for that. I'd be like, all right, tell me why I need to work with you. I was like, you don't, and this is not a good fit. I'll see you later, brother. Like that's not. It's also not the kind of person you want, right? Like people that are looking for deals and looking for discounts and looking for that. They're looking for the cheapest option, and your marketing strategies and your thought process of having success for them might often not be even the cheapest strategy or option, right? And that already scares them. And so, like, we don't like to work with scared people. We don't like to work with people that want fly by night, like quick Lambo results in a month. And we tell people that on the mastermind or coaching, consulting, whatever it is that we do. We're like, listen, we're in this thing for the long haul. We build brands, and that's something that not a lot of people really want to do. We're okay with 3 to 5 years on a company and putting in that work, maybe not taking distributions on stuff, really kind of focus and put it all in so we can create more channels and have more opportunity to create new SKUs and different things like that. Most people are still leaving a lifestyle business, and that's totally cool. Like that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we both had it at one point, but it's just not it's not the season we're in anymore.
So speaking of that, like what's with where you're at right now, like what are, obviously we talked about a few things you're doing right now, like next few years, what's the goal? What's the objective? Is it to roll up a bunch of these ecom properties and build something larger? Is it to just continue to place bets on individual ones? Is it to focus on building another Snow or something, another large $100 million company? Is it to teach it? Like, do you have a model that you can replicate that you can teach everyone now?
So really, what we want to do with the mastermind is almost build get to the point where we're the YPO of e-commerce. Really, we're not going to have a low ticket product. Like we'll have some courses and things like that, but to work with us on the mastermind side, it's going to be expensive, and we're not going to have a 5 to 8K. I don't think it's a good model, in my opinion, for ecom people, because if you're doing 50K, you're really doing 4,000, 5,000 a month, right? And you can afford a lot of stuff, and we need to kind of be in the higher tiers, especially if you got to be moving volume. If we can connect you to Walmart or a Target or a QVC or all that kind of stuff, and so it's really just focusing on the people in the first few cohorts that we have here, creating content, building a media property for that, and trying to build like a big brand, almost like a digital marketer, but just on the e-com side, so to speak, and work on specific brands and try to sell a few in the next 24 to 36 months. No specific roll up or anything, just kind of letting that side happen organically and letting really the focus be right now on the mastermind. And when more things happen, we can't like fully divulge, but Josh has a lot more time, have more opportunities to possibly build more brands with influencers, celebrities, and things like that. That's definitely a part of our focus here in probably 2022, to be honest. So 2021 is going to be a lot of mastermind education content, and then he still owns some other brands without me, and I have an operations consulting company as well, where we have people on that, and a brand that we published another guy on how to kind of build an influence engine, build influence, build relationships, make growth. And so those are kind of our brands, just keeping things internal. We have a few legacy clients that they're just there. It's very easy, it's very simple. They're scaling. We got great relationships. We're not taking anybody else on that. And honestly, man, just having fun. Like you lose sight of like, my dad passed away this year,
I'm sorry.
and thanks, man. And I got really sick, not with COVID. I had pneumonia, and it all happened at the same time. I think one kind of affected the other, and I really realized, like, man, I have what I want, right? Like, I don't need more stuff. I don't. What I don't, what I'm not putting time into is like, man, I should do more vacation. I should be home at 4 o'clock more. I should not come to work and go to Universal Studios because I can. Like, why am I not doing this? I have the team, I have the stuff, but it's this hunger, at some point it's like a dick measuring contest. Like, I want to be like him, I want to be like them, and then it becomes like, well, I'm just kind of used to it, and then you're just like, it's a habit to be successful, and you stop becoming grateful, you stop cherishing the moments. And I know that sounds cheesy, but like, dude, like, I was so sick I couldn't get up out of bed, and I saw like what happened, with my dad's stuff, and it just made me realize like life is precious, and like I have more than I ever wanted to have. I need to take a step back, be grateful for the things, and just operate slower, lower, and grow in that capacity. Say no to almost everything. Focus on the things that make me happy. Focus on our team, our culture, our brands now, and let things happen, as they go. I mean, we still have, we have a big goal for PowerHouse this year. We want to consistently grow the companies that we have in that. We have like metric based goals for all that kind of stuff, but we're not freaking out about it, right? Like 2 years ago, we would have been like, oh, this has to hit here, we got to do this, we got to do that. We're just trying to take our time with things, have fun, and really just build something different with everything we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's important, but it's challenging, right? It's most people I imagine
Because
watching this right now. What are you saying?
it's who you are. Like, it's hard to like step off the gas because like that's in your core DNA.
It's hard to do that, and it's also hard to be able to accept that like I don't have to be like everything that I see, right? Like we're bombarded with so much information every day, and the industry that we're in is a very flashy industry, and so you're constantly, anytime you open anything, you're constantly seeing somebody talking about something that they've done successfully, right? It's like, and there's no vetting, there's no filter, there's no moderation. It just, anybody can post anything, whether it's accurate with a degree of accuracy, and it makes people want more. And it's a really, really, really challenging habit and thought process and mindset to break. And it's weird. Like, and I'm sure you've dealt with this, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. Like the insanity, which everyone kind of knows the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing again and again and thinking you're gonna get different results, right? It's like you know that if you get certain things, you're happy for a period of time, and then that thing, the novelty wears off, and then it's another thing, right? And then it's another thing and another thing and another thing. And like you said, at some point you have everything that you could have wanted 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You're in, like, that was the dream, and you're kind of there now. But now that's become normal because you've had it for a while, and there's people up here that have those things. Now you just reset the bar, and it's like changing that framework where it's like recognizing that getting that thing is going to be temporary and fleeting. And so I should stop like letting it drive you and mess you with your kind of moods up and down, while also still maintaining a level of motivation, but like detaching that motivation from like tangible goals or tangible things and matching it more with like fulfillment, and am I actually enjoying things and building things that are cool. And if those cool things happen to be very successful financially, that's awesome, and I can buy more things. But like that's not the goal anymore. I feel like that's a really, really challenging switch to change. Like to flip that switch is nearly impossible for most people at some point.
No, I totally agree with you. So, I've gone through a lot of things in the internet marketing space, ups, downs, ins, out, right? Like roller coaster stuff, like no focus, saying yes to everything. And really now the big thing for me, like when designing 2021, like I have three businesses essentially. They're with three like of my best friends. So that's, I got one with Josh, I got one with my buddy Kent, and then I got one with a lot of people on the internal team here, which like some of these guys are like my brothers, right? And that's it. And there's like divisions or whatever, but like that's not important. So I get to hang out with the people I love. I get to travel places. I get to do a bunch of stuff. I get great opportunities. Big thing I want to focus on is content and growth because it's a non-equivalent, right? Like I can't create content with the intent of like driving an ROI. So now I want to create content with the intent of building a real massive audience outside internet marketing because there's so much more. Like this is like the place that raised me. Like this is where I I loved Baby Zoo, graduated to ClickBank, got out of that, got into DR, got into e-commerce, now D2C, and now I see like, man, there's so many different worlds, and all these other worlds are different, right? Like they don't think flashy, they don't think this way. They are a little bit more grateful, bigger groups, bigger all that. And so I think as you go, you graduate in your own pace, and you have to have your own personal and private goals, right? Like at one point, like it did just become like obviously like I want to crush every brand that I have, but I'm more okay now with like, well, if we did less but invested in a media platform or invested into this, what's the longevity going to look like? What's this going to look like? And if I don't have to do it, who do I have to hire for this? Like the best thing that I could have ever done is hire operations experts and CEOs, right? Because like I realized like I can take a company, like I've done it a few companies in the 8 figures, but like I personally can take like anything from 1 to 5, like no worries. And then I kind of don't like it. I have shiny object syndrome. I kind of want to mess around. I don't want to drop this. What do I do? Well, let's pay a great salary for someone, right? And for other people that are listening, like you don't have to think about those numbers, but you do have to think like, all right, if I have shiny object syndrome, I want to go do more. Can I leave this as a company and pay someone, take a little bit less distribution, maybe take my salary out, but focus on these other things, start to build some other stuff. I mean, really, that's what I ended up leading. I hired a CEO for the agency that one of the other, we have another agency that does like personal brands. Hired a CEO for that. I could go all in on the stuff with Josh, and it needed an executioner, and I love it. Like I've had so much more fun. It's just our stuff. Like we talk every day now. We're always building on top of things. Now it's this new startup vibe. We're not like startup people, but like we're still getting that fun time of like, man, we just hit this number, we just did this. Our ecom brands are growing, and like it's just like this new feeling again. And while past me would have been like, oh, I guess I'll just drop this. Instead, now I'm like, let's put leadership inside of this and let's have that run. You guys show me reports, do that. I don't even join the meetings. I don't even know who we're hiring for on that stuff, which is scary in itself, and that's super weird. I think every time you do something as well as an individual, you can go from like funnel guy to ad guy, then you lose like, oh, I'm not good at funnel. That's a copywriter, or that's a leader, or that's a whatever. You always lose a part of what like you're known for, or you think fulfills you, or you think you're valued as. And it's scary because you're not yet that next person. So you're like, like, what do I
Yeah.
even do? Like, what am I good at? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're in that in between area, and that, yeah, that is challenging. It's
Yeah.
even for me, it was like getting beyond, kind of started out with Facebook, but it's like it's such a small part in the grand scheme of things of what I do on a day to day basis now, and it's at the end of the day, like I think there we've talked about this earlier in the call. Like there's so much more that goes into a business, and it gets frustrating sometimes to hear the repeated thing of like how can I scale my business Facebook? Like what can I be doing here? And it's like, well, I can help you with some of that stuff, but there's 100 other things that if you were just doing those things, your Facebook ads would get a lot better, right? Like if you understood how to increase LTV, if you understood how to increase AOV, if you understood how to increase your conversion rate, if you understood how to implement SMS and push and email marketing, if you understood how to build an asset and do email list rentals that you can monitor, like there's so much stuff that you can do. Like people don't even think about, like with our Proud Patriots brand. Like we have multiple 6-figure email lists. We have people that come to us and say, hey, especially with how volatile paid traffic is, hey, like I want to do 20 sends, like here's $75,000, right? To send dedicated sends to our list. Like that's pure profit. And that gets
Right.
factored into like those people we acquired. Like there's all this extra money on the table once you've acquired a customer and built trust and built a relationship with them on the back end. But it's such, we're in such a space where there's such a focus on day one acquisition, and everything that I want to do and learn is about that day one acquisition. And anything that's not day one, I don't really want to hear about it because it's not exciting. I don't get that dopamine hit, and it's not driving a result today. And it gets frustrating. That's why I'm happy we're not in the agency anymore, because having to explain that to every single client, every single call, and them saying, oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it. And then a week later having to re-explain it, it's infuriating, and you can only do it for so long.
You know what? You don't have a business if your focus is day one acquisition, because that can't scale.
Yeah.
At scale, that you're going to have costs are going to rise. That's just a given, right? So, okay, your AOV is going to stay the same, let's just say, or you're going to increase it by with an upsell. You're going to get a $5 AOV increase, and it's not going to match your acquisition margin. Okay, so what are you going to do? That's That's everything else. That is, okay, well, I'm going to have to base my business off lifetime value. I'm going to have to figure out recurring revenue. I'm going to have to send email and SMS so I can make net revenue back on this. I'm going to have to figure out subscriptions. I'm going to have to build another funnel that hits a different demographic and see if that can increase it and see how that goes. I'm going to have to test Amazon. I'm going to have to go on YouTube and figure out how to do the right video because YouTube doesn't scale unless you have that one particular kind of video. I'm going to have to see if Pinterest works. I might have to invest in content marketing. I'm going to have to do SEO because if I want to do this for 5 years, all the content I can send to my email list, I can actually have it be SEO'd and be proper on that, and it's going to be longevity. But no one thinks of the longevity-based play. They just think about that quick money. And like, unfortunately, 5 years ago, all day. Like, let's
Yeah.
get that 6 times class and just like vibe out at 20,000 a day. No worries. You can't do that anymore. I mean, we have a brand that we spend $1 million a month on, and like we get a 1.3 return, and we're stoked, right? Like it just doesn't lose money, and that's all we need to do is not lose money, right? And then we're building new SKUs, new things, and it's all going to recurring lifetime value email marketing. That's where the money's at. It's not, Facebook is an acquisition tool. If you get a ROAS, you bless up, like you're lucky, but like that shouldn't be like, oh, I run $1 million a month on whatever and I'm getting a 4 times ROAS. Like it's going to go away. What are you doing now that that's successful and you have a revenue? What are you doing to invest in other opportunities so you can go out and have different channels, have different marketing? Like no one knows what you just said, that you can invest in lists. Like we buy drops on like we do things with like FabFitFun, the Chive, like all these other companies because they've got 400,000, 500,000 people, and you can do a quick drop for 10K, 15K, and it'll massively help your pixel. You can get a good return. They can come in on subscription, and no one's looking at these avenues and these channels. Everyone's just thinking about the same thing, and that's the big thing, right? But they're all just thinking about what everyone talks about because there's like 6 of us that are really on some like, well, how do you build a business? Everyone else is telling you that there's the super secret wave method that'll get you a return on blah, blah, blah. But they're not telling you that that screenshot was from a $500 spent. You start spending $5,000 a day or more, and that's not going to be a 15 times return, right?
Yeah, man, like it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch it just every day, the posts and the conversations around these strategies and tactics, and it's it's so short-sighted. And the problem with every post, and I talk about this a lot, especially the last year or so, is there's no context, right? Like you can't, unless you are with somebody in the room and they're like walking you through strategies and like what they're doing and like showing you everything that's happening. Like you have to take everything with a big grain of salt because you're looking at a single screenshot of a single visible area in a single ads manager. Maybe you get 3 or 4 of them, but you have no context. Like I can all day long, if I wanted to, I could go into ads manager, any ads manager we have, and I could cherry pick any visualization, any modification I want to show exactly what I want to show, to pitch exactly what I pitch. And I guess the thing I'll say here, and I'm sure you've seen enough business to know this, like there are so many great marketers out there in every paid channel that are very, very successful. And if you sat them all down in a room and you asked them all without like being able to talk to each other beforehand or know the question beforehand, they had like noise canceling headphones on. How do you set up an account? How do you scale? How do you do something? Like you talk them through this and they give the answer. I guarantee you they're all going to be different. Maybe not radically different, but they're all going to be somewhat different. So what that tells me is like there's no singular strategy or tactic that if you just do this in every ad account for every business, you will make money. Like, and I don't understand why people still can't grasp that. They still don't understand how there's not like this strategy that somebody's pitching. Like that's going to like the last 30 that I've been told haven't worked, but like this one, like from this person, like that's going to be the thing that finally, if I just do this and don't do anything else, like this is going to make my business work.
You nailed it, man. Like that, I say that all the time. Right when I talk to anybody and ask me, they're like, "Well, how are you going to set up this? What if this happens?" Like, the real answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I got to look at your ads. I got to see the conversions. What are you setting things up for? How did you start that? What's going on with your pages? What is the conversion on your pages? Like, how much traffic are you driving? Is it something different? Like, are you including retargeted? Is it a blended ROAS? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know the answer to your question. And if I did your campaign the exact same way for an offer that you did yours, also that account could totally show me different results,
Yep.
like totally. And so I don't there is no true Facebook ads course in the world anymore. Back in the day, there was like methods and ways that you could scale and bid and do certain things. Those methods change per account per day depending on what now. And like you don't have the answers, and neither do I. I'm cool with saying that because like the truth is I can configure the answers, I can look at things, there's some things that we would test, there's other kind of stuff, but you've got to be in the mix. Like that's why I think like really people should be paying like monthly continuities for Facebook consulting and advertising stuff because it changes by the day. It
Exactly.
changes, like methods flip and everything is totally different. You can't just say, here's my course. Dude, 6 months, 2 months, maybe even a month. That course is outdated. Those methods are gone. What's happening in my account today? I need a call on a Wednesday. And that's what you can do. And there you can have support and have a lot more conversation, but not on a quick course.
Yeah, and that's why we decided like a year ago, like we're no longer going to sell courses. We're going to sell a weekly call, essentially a group that you get access to, where every like today, Tuesdays, I go live for 90 minutes and all of our members can post threads, they can post what's happening, their offers, they can ask questions and I answer them today based on today's information in your business. Like, sure, you get
Right.
access to all of our content, and maybe there's stuff in there, there's strategies that are, will help you get a foundation, which is great. But like the real value, like honestly, we're gonna do a point where I just want to give all that stuff away for free. And we're probably gonna move to that in 2021, where all of our content essentially and like 3 years worth of Q&As, we're basically breaking up to this massive Q&A library where you can just get every question you possibly that's already been answered. But like this is the value. This is what you should be paying for. You shouldn't be paying for the generic kind of information or knowledge. It's personalization and real time help and support because that's what you need as a marketer and business owner to be successful is somebody helping you today based on today's information and your business, your numbers be successful, not a generic strategy. Because that's if you make courses, you have to make them generic to be economical. Like you can't make them hyper specific, otherwise you can't monetize them because they're too specific, right? Like and it's challenging because I still don't think we're at that point yet where people have made that realization. I think we're still in that phase of like courses are still the kind of dominant medium for consuming information and learning, um, not the more interactive element of it.
It needs to move into the more interactive element. And I think for anyone watching who, you know, is thinking that ads are like the end all be all, how I structure my ads, how I do this and that, the reality is, what are your creatives?
Yep.
Your creatives are the number one thing. It's not just how you're setting up ads. How much are you testing creatives? What are your creatives? What are the angles on your creatives? How are you chopping your creatives? It's about creatives more than anything now at scale.
Yeah. 100%. I think the actual technicalities of a lot of these platforms, they're becoming so advanced that a lot of the stuff that we used to be able to arbitrage and find opportunities in terms of like finding kind of loopholes and finding opportunities in the bid and stuff like that, those are kind of closed. And Facebook and Google are doing a better job at finding the right person and pacing the budget and spending and all this stuff than we are as humans. But what's hard to replicate is engaging videos that stop somebody from scrolling and elicit something in them and speak to this kind of underlying goal and motivation they have and then position the product as the solution to that problem they have. Like that's the stuff that's going to take a while for any type of AI to replicate. Eventually I'm sure it'll be able to do it, but at least for the next few years, like that's the X factor is the businesses that are really, really good at creative and have amazing offers and amazing brands are going to succeed, and the ones that are focused on the technicals and all that stuff are going to continue to struggle and continue to ask the questions like, what's wrong? Why is Facebook broken? Like, why is it not working? Why can't I make it work? And it's a similar what Josh done with Snow, right? It's like he took and not just Snow, but like this whole boom the last 5 years of D2C brands. You look at all the categories. A lot of these businesses took kind of commodity products and they said, well, this is a boring industry, but a lot of people buy it, need it. Let me put a really fun brand. Let me put some unique USPs into it. Let me make something special around it. And let me position it in a very unique, creative way that speaks to a specific audience. And we've had this just amazing run for the last, half decade in industries that 10 years ago, nobody would have said enter, right? Like you go by any mattress store, nobody ever goes into, like, I haven't seen a single person go into any mattress store by us ever. Like people don't go in there to buy mattresses. They don't get excited about mattresses. But Purple, Casper, Nectar, you have like a dozen brands that have popped up that are all doing massive volume. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, I think the winners nowadays are going to be people that are focused on creative community influencers and lifetime value. And if
Yep.
you have all those focus, then you're going to have a lot of success. And I think you're going to see people being like, "It's not winning. I'm not winning. I'm not winning." But you're not doing any of those things, or you'll do it for a week and their ROI wasn't massive. So I got to stop.
Yeah. Pull the entire plug. We see that a lot. So I want to respect your time. I know we're coming up on the hour here. Before we hop off, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, if they want to learn more from you, if they want to follow you, what's the best place for them to go check that out?
Just go to my Insta, Los Hustle, and Josh Snow. If you guys want to talk to either one of us.
Awesome, dude. Well, it was great chatting. I'm looking forward to doing this more in 2021. Maybe we'll do a 3-part. We'll do a 3-person interview. You, Josh, and me. That'll be fun. We can jam out some stuff. I think that'd be cool. So we'll try to schedule something like that.
Awesome, man. Great talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.